Hello there, Grammar 3 people. So glad to see you. This is kind of the first video, and it's interesting. We're starting to do this right when things are sort of winding down, so you don't have as much to do this week in grammar, so I think you'll probably be glad about that. But let's go ahead and get started like we always do with our minute. So if you will pull out your minute 49, it looks like this. And what we're going to do before we get started, let's go ahead and look at the instructions of it, because I think a lot of times y'all get kind of mixed up as to what you underline, what you circle, and all that, and I've noticed that on some of your other papers. So let's just go ahead, and if you have a highlighter ready, that would be nice, because then you can highlight some things while we're doing this. But the instructions say circle the adverb in each sentence, underline the verb that the adverb describes. So what I would like you to do is take your pencil, draw a circle around, circle the adverbs, and then draw a line underline the verb. And then if you take your highlighter, you can actually highlight the words adverb and verb. And so that will help you just at a glance to remember what you do with what. It should look something like this. I don't know if you can see it very well, but this is what it should look like, okay? So let's go ahead and do the first one. Okay, the first one says, the children excitedly put on their skates at the skating rink. So what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to circle the adverb, underline the verb. First of all, find the verb, which is put. So go ahead and underline put. And then what is the adverb that describes put? And it's excitedly. So go ahead and circle excitedly. Okay, it's just as simple as that. All right, so you have 1 minute and to get this done, so go. Stop. All right, did you finish it? Let's go through it real quickly to see how you did. Okay, we've already done number 1. So number 2, you underline dart, that's the verb, circle quickly. 3, underline skate, circle gracefully. 4, underline did, circle bravely. Number 5, underline clapped, circle happily. Number 6, underline played, circle softly. Number 7, underline shrieked, circle loudly. 8, underline stepped, circle carefully. Number 9, underline wore and circle wisely. Number 10, underline skated and circle cautiously. Okay, so how did you do on that? You probably did great, because you know your verbs and adverbs pretty well. All right, we're going to talk about something today called degrees of comparison, and this is a really easy thing. You do it all the time. It's not anything new, and all it is when you compare something against something else. So basically, if you have two things, if you're comparing 2 pieces of fruit, you add an ER to the adjective that you're using to compare. So you would say, bananas are better than apples. Simple as that. You just add an ER. Now, that's only comparing two things, okay? That's just comparing two things. That's called comparative. But then sometimes you can compare more than two things, don't you? You compare three or more things. And so then you can say, bananas are the best fruit of all. So rather than saying better, you say best. Or if you're going to use the word bright, this is a bright day. Yesterday was a brighter day than today. 3 days ago was the brightest day of all. Okay, so you're comparing the 3 days. All right, you see what I'm saying? So when you are doing a comparative, you just add an ER to it. And you know that because you speak good English and it's nothing new to you. You probably have never even really thought about it. All right, and if you are comparing more than three things, it's called superlative. All right, and we're going to talk about it just a little bit more. I mean, that's really the main thing we're going to do. But you're going to make a page in your composition book about it. So go ahead and cut your pieces down to the right size. It would be 7 inches wide, 9.5 inches long. And you are going to make a page that looks like this. All right. Now the thing that you can't see on your picture that you have in your packet is that this is a flap. All right. That's the main thing I wanted to show you because we're going to write something underneath this thing. So what you do is you take your piece of paper that you have, cut this part, this top part out, and glue it just flat down on your paper. Then you're going to cut this part down here, and you're only going to glue the top part and glue it right on top of here. All right, so then you'll have this flap that's open. All right, so that's what you're going to do on that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what actually all that means. All right, so before we do anything under the flap, let's go ahead and look at these words that we've got here. The first one is done for you. It says good. That's just the regular word. And then if you're going to compare two things, you say better. And then if you can compare more than two things, you say best. Now, that word is kind of a different word, isn't it? Because it's an irregular adjective. Because when you say the word good, if you're using the regular rule, you would say gooder. Does that make sense? No, that's not a word. Gooder isn't a word. Neither is goodest. So the whole word has changed. All right? So sometimes there is an exception. English has a way of having exceptions, doesn't it? And that is one of them. Okay, let's look at bright. If you were comparing two things, what would you say? You would say brighter. Okay, so go ahead and write brighter in that arrow. If you're going to compare more than two things, which I already did, I compared the day, all right? It is the brightest day of all. So the word there would be brightest. You're adding an est. It is a superlative. And you're going to do the same thing with the others. For fancy, if you're going to compare two things, you just add an er, fancier. This dress is fancier than that dress. The difference on this one is this word fancy ends in a Y. So you need to make sure that you spell fancier properly, and what you do is you have to change that Y to I. Okay, we've talked about that actually in some of your spelling. All right, so it's fancier. And then if you have 3 or 4 dresses that you're comparing and you say, oh man, this is the fanciest one of all of them, then it's fanciest. You add the est. Okay, so you have change your Y to I again, fanciest. And then you have some words that have more than 2 syllables in them, or 2 or more syllables in them. All right. Now, in the case of fancy, that's 2 syllables in it. Fancy. Well, you just added an er and an est just like usual. But there are some words that you can't do that to, because again, they make words that aren't really words. And cheerful is one of them. It has 2 syllables, but you don't say cheerfuler, do you? or cheerfulest. You say more cheerful. And you say most cheerful. There are some two-syllable words that you don't add ER or EST to. You have to use the word more or most. All right? Then we come down to words like interesting. Interesting is a three-syllable word. And this one, if you have a three-syllable word, it's automatically you use most or more or most. All right? So here we've got interesting. And so if you're comparing two things, one thing is more interesting than another. Then, or if you compare three things, this is the most interesting thing of all. All right, so you're just going to finish filling that part up there, like just what we said, and you also have a copy of it in front of you too, if you've forgotten, you know, what we said. All right, so then let's look up here at our flap. Okay. When you're going to compare, compare something that's the same, you can say this is as good as that. This one is as good as that one. All right. So what I've written up here is a comparison with the word as. So these are when things are the same. This day is as bright as yesterday was, which in this case isn't very bright. Okay, we've kind of had some gloomy days lately. All right, so that's what you write here. Okay, comparison with as. I have as in apostrophe because I just want to make that word stand out a little bit. Okay, so now we come over to the second column, which is comparative. And again, what we said was you're comparing two things. So that's all I wrote. Comparison with two things. All right? And the same thing over here in the third one, except it's three things. It's superlative. Comparison with three or more things. So all this is just saying what we've already said. All right, so now when you're done with that, we'll go down to the bottom, and again, this is all what I've already said. So it's just a matter of copying it. If you have a one-syllable word, you add an ER or an EST, unless it's an irregular one like this up here. All right? That's just a one-syllable word. This is a one-syllable word. If you have a two-syllable word, you either add an ER and EST, or you add the more or most, and we talked about that too. You say fancier, but you don't say cheerfuler. Okay, and this one you add the ER to compare, EST for superlative, and this one you add the word more for comparative, and you add the word most for superlative. Getting tongue-tied here. All right, and then the third one down here, three or more syllable word, you add either more or most. Okay, now all that seems like common sense to you, and you go, well, of course that's the way it is, because like I said, you know good English. But did you know that there's people who don't know English very well who wouldn't even know this? So you kind of take it as, well, of course that's the way it is. But you don't even know you're following rules or not following rules. But anyway, so that's kind of an important thing to know. Okay, that's all you're going to do for grammar today. How easy was that? All right. So now let's go ahead and look at your spelling. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to read through the words. So you can read through them with me, or you can say it after me. All right, so let's go ahead and read them. Imperfect, impolite, impatient, improper, inactive, inconvenient, incorrect, inconsiderate, preview, prejudice, prevent, prefix, prehistoric, unable, uncertain, uncomfortable, unaware, ungrateful, tableau, and chrysalis. Tableau doesn't look anything like it's spelled, does it? I think that comes from French. All right, so look at what's the same about all these words. If you look back up to the week's focus, you can see exactly what's the same about all of them. They all have prefixes. Now remember, a prefix is a word part that's added to a word and it changes the meaning of the word. So we have the word imperfect. Well, the base word is perfect and we've added im to the front of it, and im means not, so imperfect means not. So let's look. We have im, we have in, we have pre, and we have un. Well, im, in, and un all mean not. So if you put that in front of a word, it automatically means not. Inactive means not active. Inconvenient means not convenient. All right. Unable means not able. Okay, so it means not. Pre means before. So one of your words here is prehistoric. It's before the recording of history. Okay, that's all that means. All right, so what I would like you to do now is take your highlighter and highlight all the prefixes that you see in your words. That'll help you sort of divide the prefixes out from the base words a little bit. And that is all we have to do today. So you are finished. That was kind of short, wasn't it? And you don't have sentences to classify or anything. Okay, so have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.